our community advisory group meeting here in June. It's overcast today, June 13th. My name is Johnell. I'm one of your co-facilitators. We'll go ahead and kick off. We've got a pretty packed agenda today, so I hope everyone is doing well and enjoying the remaining days of spring. Next slide, please. Just as a reminder, we do have closed captions both in English as well as in Spanish. English closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow this link to view both English and Spanish captions in a separate browser window, https://ibr.news/captions. Next slide, please. Just a reminder, we first want to thank you all for joining us today. Please join audio by either phone or computer, but not both. We encourage panelists to turn on your video. Please keep your audio on mute when not speaking. If you experience technical difficulties, please contact program staff at 360-329-6744. Next slide, please. Just a reminder of how you may access our closed captions. At the bottom middle of your screen, you should see a menu of options. If you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen, click on the CC icon, and a separate window with captions will appear. Next slide. In an effort to continue to center equity, there is an ASL interpreter in addition to closed captioning. To make sure the interpreter is always visible, please right-click their video and select Spotlight Video. For those watching on YouTube, when we screen share, you will be able to see the slideshow, closed captioning, and the ASL interpreter. You will still be able to hear different people speaking, but may not see them. Public input instructions. There will be an opportunity to provide brief public input later in the meeting today, roughly around 5:45 p.m. Verbal public comment will be welcome in the Zoom webinar during the designated time, with the option to turn on your web camera. Please use the link located in the meeting description on YouTube meeting page or on the IBR CAG meeting webpage. Commenters will not be allowed to share their screens and will be removed from the room once the public comment period concludes. To comment by phone, you may dial 669-900-6833 or 1-408-638-0968. You'll want to remember to enter the meeting ID number 993-5459-6043 and passcode number 674942. Please also remember to dial *9 to raise your hand. After you are invited to speak, you'll also want to remember to dial *6 to unmute yourself. And just to go over our agenda real quickly, here in a second, I'll turn it over to our co-chairs. We will today get updates from program administrators. Greg Johnson will have an overview of WSDOT towed facilities and what it's like to be a customer. You'll have an opportunity for Q&A. Then we'll have another conversation relative to toll scenario development and feedback. You'll receive an update on bi-state tolling subcommittee work, as well as have an opportunity for robust Q&A, as well as understanding policy prescription there. We'll then receive a public comment, and then we'll have a close. Next slide, please. Just a reminder, of course, for all of us, we're experts at this now. As we work to advance this work, it's for us to remember to put our relationships first, to keep focused on our common goal, for us always to notice the power and dynamics in the room, create a space for multiple truths and norm, for us to be kind and brave, to always be practicing examining racially biased systems and processes, for us to look for learning. Next slide. With that, I will turn it over to our co-chairs, Lynn Valenter, and I don't know if Ed is here yet, but when Ed gets here, our other co-chair, Ed Washington. Lynn?
Thank you. So we were having a little bit of conversation before everybody dialed in and talking about how exciting this presentation was. And no, we're not being tongue in cheek, but I think anytime we're talking about funding and an area of concern that most of us know nothing about, it's really a great opportunity to learn from experts. And so I'm particularly looking forward to the presentations that we're going to be receiving. I also just want to acknowledge that summer's a rough time for us to have attendance. And so for each of you who've made a choice to attend and participate, I just want to say thank you. It matters. And we want to keep pushing toward submission of the supplemental DEIS and the rest of the process. So I just want to thank all of you for hanging in there with us as we continue this important work. It's been a long road to hoe, but it's we're making progress every week, every month. And so thank you for your contributions to that. I don't think we're going to do introductions, so I'm guessing maybe we're going, oh, we are doing introductions. Sorry, if I would read the slides, I was looking at my notes. So if I can have all the CAG members, actually, I'm just going to call a name and then each CAG member can call another name. But if you just introduce yourself, your organization or your affiliation for why you're participating. The first name I see. Oh, I see. Okay.
And real quickly before we do that, Lynn, I don't know if you wanted to welcome our newest member, John Wilson, to the group.
I think that would be great. I'm not.
Yeah,
sorry.
so I've got John
here. Well, there he is, right in the middle of the Hollywood Squares. So, John, if you might lead us off, just telling, and John will probably share just a little bit more than the rest of us who've been doing this forever. But, John, if you don't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be, raise your hand to serve on CAG, that would be great to get us started. And really a warm welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and really appreciate being a part of this group. My name is John Wilson. I work for the Vancouver Clinic, and my current role is the Ancillary Services Director. So we're lab pathology, radiology, research, logistics, and a couple other smaller departments, pronouns he, him. And I was first notified about this opportunity through the CEO of Vancouver Clinic, and they were looking for a team member at the Vancouver Clinic who could represent both healthcare as well as the clinic as a whole, because we do have a really unique footprint, both having locations in Oregon and in Washington. My role over imaging and lab means that we also have to transport a lot of lab samples, a lot of other types of documentation throughout the process. So my team members are traditionally crossing over the bridge at least 3 times a day. I grew up in the Portland metro area, predominantly Milwaukee. And after I graduated from high school, joined the military and did that for 4 years, and then went to college out of state. Moved back, went to grad school at Pacific University and worked in the Portland area, predominantly at Oregon Health and Science University. After a few years, moved to Central Washington and then came back to Clark County here, where I currently live, just north of Vancouver. But I still do have most of my family on the Portland side and a lot of friends over there. And so I still do spend a large amount of time over on the other side of the river, and also just representing that from the personal side, but also on the operational side for work, spending a lot of time over there. We are currently looking to continue to ensure that we have a opportunity to provide more care for patients over on the Oregon side. So we certainly want to make sure that whether it's access to services or any type of new lines of care that we can provide for patients, that we make it as streamlined, as easy as possible for patients to cross the river for that care.
So thank you for that, John. And I just want to highlight that someone who's got a vested interest in traversing the bridge, as well as your history with living and being on both sides of the river, are exactly what we're looking for in members. So thank you again for raising your hand and serving. Our
Thank you.
normal practice is that we raise our hand, and then once we talk, we put our hand down. That way we don't call on people who are providing other important services that aren't CAG members. I'm going to go ahead and do that for you and give you a pass since you're the rookie. We only get one pass, so we'll expect you to be fully functioning from here on out.
Perfect.
But
Thank
again,
you.
warm welcome, and we look forward to getting to know you a little bit better. I'm gonna pick on Irina as she was the first one to get her hand up, and then from then on, if each of us would just call on each other, that would be great. Irina?
Yeah, my pronouns are she, her. I am economist by training, and I represent East European Coalition. There's immigrants and refugees from Eastern Europe, like former USSR, but also catch like Polish people, Hungarian, so kind of like former socialist bloc. And I'm on this committee because so many people either are going to use the bridge or they hope to get construction jobs to build it. So just to hear, to listen, and share with the community what's going on. Okay, and I'm calling on Tom Hickey.
Thank you. Tom Hickey, pronouns. I joined the CAG when I was chair of the Bridgeton Neighborhood Association, which is the community at the Marine Drive interchange, so directly at the south end of the bridge, and a neighborhood that will be strongly affected by both the construction and the infrastructure changes that the bridge will bring. But I joined the CAG to represent the voice not only of Bridgeton but the interests of the North Portland neighborhoods as a whole, and to make sure that the outcomes for the North Portland neighborhoods are as beneficial as possible. And I will pass it to Sam.
Thank you, Tom. And I want to say welcome, John. Love Vancouver Clinic. So my pronouns are he, him. I was a super commuter across the bridge working in Hillsborough, but now I'm a super commuter working in Olympia, working for the Employment Security Department. But this bridge is still very important to me. Next, I'll pick Martha to my left.
Hi, I'm Martha Wiley, and my pronouns are she, her, and I am a member at large from Vancouver. I focus mostly on transit with particular emphasis on paratransit. So this bridge is important as a transit option. Yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna pick. I'm sorry, I don't know. Is it Jarina or Garina? Well, anyway,
it's Jarina. Thank
Jarina.
you.
Sorry.
I am a mobility manager in Vancouver, Washington. I live in rural battleground myself, so I work in Clark County, and I represent a lot of different populations in that particular function. My pronouns are she, her, and I actually was kind of thrown into this position, but I'm okay with that. I'm gonna pick Zachary.
Thank you, Garina. Can you all hear me okay? This mic's been acting up. Okay, great. Zachary Lauritsen, he, him. I work at Oregon Walks. We do pedestrian advocacy. We say everyone is a pedestrian, even if it's less and sometimes more, depending on your life circumstances. And I represent, I like to think, people whose interests are folks who often can't drive or don't drive for whatever reasons, how they can utilize these spaces, and then the impacts in the communities close to the bridge is really important to us, not just the bridge itself. I'll pass it on to Jay Clark.
Hi, I'm Jay Clark, he, him. I am part of the government affairs team at the Portland Metro Chamber. Obviously, this is important to all businesses, large and small, so that freight can move easily back and forth. Something that affects not only Portland and Vancouver, but the entire West Coast is affected by this bridge. And I'm a proud resident of East Vancouver, even though I work in downtown Portland. So I too suffer the commute almost daily. And I will pass it to Bill.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you. He, him are my pronouns. I work for the Oregon Association of Minority Entrepreneurs, who I'm representing. Pardon my voice. I do have COVID. That's why I'm sitting at home. I don't know how I got it. Thought I was just getting a cold and tested, and there it was. So everybody don't remember that it's still there. Anyway, we have a good partnership with the IBR. In fact, we formed a committee with them to help the entrepreneurs, and particularly the contractors, engineers, architects, and the rest of the members that we have available to help give information back and forth. So I'm here representing Omami. I will next hand it over to Dina Horton.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dina Horton, Government Relations Director for the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association. She, her pronouns. I'm also an East Vancouver resident. I work in East Portland, so we do use the 205 unless there is an accident, and then it's easier to get across on the I-5. I am representing waterway users and multimodal freight users. So my interest in the bridge is ensuring that it is tall enough for our ships and other cargo to get underneath it. So thank you very much. And I will pass it off to my colleague on the trucking side of freight, Sherry.
Hi, good afternoon. Sherry Call. I'm president of the Washington Trucking Association representing freight. I might be the northernmost participant in this panel today, sitting here in Olympia, Washington. Washington Trucking Association is a not-for-profit trade association that represents the interest of the trucking industry in Washington state. Our interest in this bridge is obviously to have a resilient structure for safety and for improved efficiency of freight movement, which benefits all consumers. Thanks. And I will pass it to Julie. Looks like you're our last one.
Okay, sounds good. My name is Julie Dumbia. I am a participant at large from the Northeast Portland neighborhood. So not representing an industry, just a member of the community. And let's see, I use she, her pronouns. And you said let's see here, I'm looking on the list here. Looks like I am the last one. I'm not seeing any more hands. Yeah, I think I'm the last one. Okay.
And an illustrious group we are. Thank you, everyone. I'm looking at my agenda and I'm thinking that the next thing is a program update from our fearless leader, Greg Johnson. Did I get that right? Someone will gladly correct me if I did not.
The fearless part, you know. Well, once again, thanks everybody. And John, thank you for stepping up and being a part of this advisory group. This is, once again, a tremendously important project. So if we could go to the next slide, let's talk about what's been going on with the program. So we had a very robust 3-hour meeting with our bi-state legislative committee. And for those who don't know, we have members on each side of the river representing both the Washington legislature and the Oregon legislature. And we meet on a regular basis. They give us oversight and help us to drive the program forward. So we had a great conversation with them. We had not met since before this last session. So this was probably 6 months of pent up energy and very robust discussion. Some of the discussion, if you get a chance, please watch it, was around the bridge configuration and how much space will be dedicated to bike, walk, and transit as opposed to the highway mode. So as we tell folks, both bike, walk, and transit, as well as freight movements, as well as the highway movements, are all part of purpose and need. And we have to address all of them. We can't just pick and choose which ones we're going to address. So folks who are adamant that we don't want to spend money on bike ped, that ship has sailed. So we will be creating a bike walk facility across the river to connect the communities that do not drive. And we had a equity roundtable regarding active transportation and access to the bridge, which was very robust and talked about the needs for having connected infrastructure for bike, walk, and roll. So it was a very good conversation, some disagreements from some of the legislators, but once again, we're making the case as we are moving forward. So you're going to hear a lot about bi-state tolling, so I'm not going to jump into that issue very deep. We also, I mentioned the equity roundtable that we held last month, Pathways to Active Transportation. That was a very, very good discussion talking about what the challenges are to getting people out of those short vehicle trips or connecting infrastructure to make sure if people want to make longer trips, walking or riding, that we have done it appropriately. So it was a good discussion. This morning, I was at the West Side Economic Alliance making a presentation. That was a very, very good conversation. Folks were very interested in what's going on because they do truly see this as a regional as well as a national and international project. So very good conversation with that group. We are continuing to talk to the neighborhood associations in intense ways. We had some tabling at the Latino Community Resource Group Multicultural Resource Fair. We're also going to be at Vancouver Juneteenth celebrations and Portland Sunday Parkways coming up. So our team, just about every weekend throughout the summer, we will be at a different location, getting people up to speed on where we're at with the program. So do I have another slide? Maybe. Let's go to the next slide. All right, go back a slide because I want to take a little time and give people an update of where we are at on our schedule. So as many of you may have heard in the media and in previous meetings, we experienced a delay in our release of the draft supplemental document. We were working through issues with our federal partners. This is not, as was portrayed in the media, a big disagreement. We had to make sure that we were meeting their expectations. And so we worked through that issue. It took us a while to get there, but that issue is behind us. And now we are back on schedule for a release of the draft supplemental environmental impact statement later this year. So we hope to have all of this wrapped up before Thanksgiving with the 60-day public comment period, public hearings, and that will then put us into the final supplemental process, getting to a record of decision. And we have some concurrence with our federal partners that we are looking to get that done by late next year. So what that means overall is that we are hoping to have shovels in the ground on some early work contracts late 2025, early 2026. So the work that we're doing as part of this group, getting the community up to speed and letting your constituents or folks that you represent know that this project is moving, and it is starting to move very quickly. I don't know how many of you saw the annual race that they have in Scotland, where they roll a wheel of cheese down the hill, and folks are running after it and rolling down the hill. That's what it's going to feel like over the next 2 years. We're going to be going very, very fast. So we are also putting together how we are going to build this. And we talked a little bit about that at our last meeting. So we have some plans of 28 different contracts, but the first 2 contracts are going to be the first 2 big contracts are going to be the bridge and the approach work on each side of the bridge. And we are hoping by the end of this year to have a draft request for proposals out on the street for the industry to start looking at and finalizing their teaming on these 2 major projects that will be a part of this overall program. So this is it's an exciting time. It's a busy time, and some of the things that we need this group to be thinking about is workforce, how we are going to make sure that we have a prepared workforce ready to start this, that companies who want to be a part of this, small businesses, women, minority-owned businesses, that we are having robust conversations with them to get them ready. Bill mentioned that we are talking to AWAMI, as well as other groups that represent contractors, designers, to make sure that they are knowing what our schedule is and how to get involved. So that's the update that I have, and I'll take any questions that the group may have. So, Bill.
Oh, thanks, Greg, for that report. Hey, you mentioned draft RFPs for the beginning of the both sides of the bridge. Do you have a date or time for that to be released?
So we are hoping to do that late this year, early next year. So the draft will be out there to get industry feedback on what we are proposing, the methods we're proposing, so we can finalize and put a final RFP on the street out for the bridge about a year to 14 months from now.
So do you, just to follow up, so do you think from my question last time that you'll be starting to tell the communities what to look for in the future as far as traffic problems and infrastructure development and that kind of thing, so that those communities, and I'm thinking in Bridgeton or all those that are right around there, Hayden Island, will know what kinds of things they're going to have to look forward to in the future?
Yes, we're going to have a detailed community outreach specifically leading up to the release of these RFPs, but to talk about what the neighborhoods can expect. It is our plan to maintain 3 lanes of traffic in each direction for the vast majority of the time this is under construction. We will at times have some lanes closed. We will be at times interrupting the bike and pedestrian, but we will be looking to use bus bridges to facilitate getting walkers and bikers through the construction zone across the river. But all of those details the team is working on, and we will have better and more detailed information within the next 6 to 8 months on those type of issues.
Go to Sam, Dina, and then Zachary.
All right. Hey, Greg, thank you so much for your, I guess, steadfastness when talking to the Colombian reporter. I really liked your answers. One of the areas that they talked about was the eminent domain. I'm assuming a large project like this will have to do eminent domain on either side of the river. I think that's a given, number one. But number two is, again, timeline. If the construction is going to begin late next year or early year after, it seems like the eminent domain, when needed, would need to start way before then. Is that a correct assumption? And do you have kind of a timeline as to when that could begin?
So Sam, it's a great question, and it's one that we continue to get more and more often as we're getting closer to the reality of construction starting. So we cannot do any right-of-way takes without having a record of decision, unless there are willing sellers. So if there are willing sellers, our real estate folks will be engaging with them. But once again, we have to have a record of decision, which will come late next year, because what that does, it finalizes the footprint. Right now, the footprint is a projected footprint of impacts that we're going to have. It won't be final until that final signature is on the record of decision. But we're going to start the conversation around real estate, because, as I've told folks, taking properties, buying properties and businesses is one of the most emotionally charged things that DOTs do on large projects. So we're going to be talking to folks and making sure they know their rights. As far as eminent domain is a tool in the toolbox, but it is generally the last tool when everything else has failed. And we will get our real estate folks to come to this group and talk about what the process will look like, because it will be tremendously important for you folks as representatives of the community to understand. So you can talk to your organizations or your neighbors about how this process works. But eminent domain is only if we cannot come to an agreement. So what we will be offering, which is a standard practice, is we will have an appraiser appraise values of businesses, moves that may be necessary, of homes and relocation that may be necessary. But we will also offer for those homes and individuals, or for those homes and businesses, to get their own appraiser, which we will pay for. And then those two appraisers will come to an agreement on what that appraised value is. Now, if everything else fails, that's when we get into eminent domain. And it is a very prescribed process, but it is the last tool in the toolbox to use. So,
okay, what I'm hearing is fair market value will be what's going to get paid. Thank you.
And we're running just a little bit over, but we'll go to Dina and then Zachary.
Thanks so much, Greg. As always, just curious if since we've been talking timelines, since there has been a little bit of a slip of the release for the draft supplemental EIS to later this fall instead of imminently, has that also affected the timeline for the permitting process? And can you speak a little bit to the permitting, which I'm assuming has to be done before you can start turning shovels? And if you could kind of highlight that, as well as particularly the Coast Guard permit, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so there are numerous permits and agreements that we have to move this entire project forward. I think someone mentioned to me that 25 permits or agreements have to be reached to get this whole thing constructed. One of the key ones is the Coast Guard permit that dictates what the height will be. So we are right now, the path that we're on, we will need that Coast Guard permit in 2026. So we are still working with the Coast Guard. We meet with them bi-weekly to have discussions on height and their concerns for river navigation, as well as meeting with the Army Corps about river channels. And so we are working with the impacted river users. We have negotiations that are ongoing that are covered by non-disclosure agreements, but we are working towards mitigating needs for over 116 feet on the river. And if we reach that with those impacted users and the ships that travel through, we will be asking the Coast Guard for a reissuance of their preliminary navigation clearance determination. So all of those things are part of the moving parts that are moving forward. But that is one of the key permits, but we're looking at sometime in 2026 for that.
Thanks.
Zachary?
Awesome. Thank you. Good to see you all. Greg, last month you had shared with us there was going to be a kind of a re-release of some cost escalations because we've had just in really high inflation and costs of materials and everything. And so I was wondering if that has been released and I just missed it, that's possible. The question I have is around we've seen the cost of the project kind of creep up, and we know with delays that potentially could happen some more. And I was wondering if we can see like a true worst case scenario number, like if everything goes wrong and costs continue to rise. Because the reason I ask this is because just in the Rose Quarter, their number that they need to build the Rose Quarter project is more than the money that ODOT has. And what we hear all the time as pedestrian advocates is often things get cut, right? And the things that get cut first are usually pedestrian items. And so like the pedestrian bridge on I-5 or in the Rose Quarter likely could get cut. Projects in the other parts of Region 1 likely could get cut that are for pedestrians and cyclists and transit users. So our concern is as the costs creep up, that the things that we really care about get cut in order to make budget. So I guess I have a two-part question is one, can we see a true like worst case scenario number? Like what is that high end worst case scenario number? And the second one is, what do we do? Where does the revenue come from if that worst case scenario happens? Because once we start building, it's got to get built. So how does it get paid for? Can you talk a little bit about that? Since I continue to see the number to get bigger, I feel like we got to have a plan for what happens if we do hit those really gnarly big numbers.
So Zachary, it's a great question. So it was our plan to go into another what's called a cost CVIP, cost validation estimating process that looks at risk and evaluates and puts a cost to risk. And so the last time we did this, which was 2 years ago, we came up with a range between 5 and 7.5 billion, and that 7.5 billion was the worst case scenario at that time. But once again, as we have seen the outpacing of inflation rates beyond what anybody was expecting in the construction industry, those numbers are going higher. We're seeing it across the nation on large construction projects. So we expect that number to be higher. We were going to start another CVIP process on the heels of getting the draft supplemental document done. But now as that has been pushed, we are pushing that CVIP to understand what we are building. So it'll probably be around this time next year that we will have that final process completed with a more rigorous and up-to-date number for overall construction cost. So the issue of what gets cut, right now we are telling folks that this is a comprehensive project. You can't just pull things out of it and expect the project to stand on its own. As we said, the purpose and need statements speak to bike ped. It speaks to transit. It speaks to the highway mode as well as freight. So we are looking at how, if that number comes in, what other funding sources are available. And we're having conversations with our federal partners. They recognize the inflation that we're seeing in the construction industry, and they have assured us that they are partners in this to see this project get built out how it is envisioned. So there are a number of things that we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at value engineering to not value engineer critical aspects out of this, but to make sure we are as efficient with what we are building as possible. That doesn't mean we're going to take off and narrow up the bike ped ways that will be moving. It doesn't mean that we're going to eliminate transit off of here. But if we can look at smarter, better ways to construct what we have. That's what the value engineering will be seeking to do. But also, we'll be looking at, if we don't have enough money, we'll be looking at sequencing until we get enough federal commitment to build the entire thing. But those are decisions that we will be facing once we know what that next estimate tells us. So team is thinking on it every day.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know if it's meaningful or if this resonates with other members of the committee, but it would really be meaningful to me to have a true worst case scenario number, because when it keeps inching up, it feels like we aren't really being planful or honest with, oh my gosh, I'm sorry about that. My auto thing, it's a party in here, folks. It feels like we don't have a true grasp of what could really go sideways, and are we okay with that number? And what are we going to do if that happens? And so when it keeps inching up, it feels like we're not grasping with that. So if you and your team are willing, it would be really excellent to hear, like, what if these things all happen? What if we find native remains on the northern shore in Vancouver? What if there's lawsuits that tie this up? What if there's, just like all these different steps? What is that number in a true worst case scenario, so that we understand what we're wading into and committing to?
So Zachary, all of those things that you mentioned are in that that CVIP process to get to a risk loaded number. That 7.5 million was, if everything goes sideways, how much would this project cost? And back 2 years ago, our projection was it would cost 7.5 million if everything went sideways. Now, if some things went sideways, some things went better than expected, we would be at the 6 billion number. So currently that's our number, but we know that number is going to rise because the inflationary number that we put in and escalation that we're seeing is higher than we had projected. So those are the things that will drive that number higher. But the risk elements you talk about, those things are being looked at very carefully and being evaluated and monitorized for how much it would cost if those things do play out.
Great. And with that, we probably ought to move on. Thank you, Program Administrator Greg Johnson, as always. With that, we're going to transition over, I believe we're turning it over to Megan Hodges. So Megan Hodges.
Listening intently and wasn't even ready because Greg has a lot to say today, which is great. Okay, so I will start. We can shift to the next slide. So I did present this to you guys in the last meeting, but I wanted to come back with a reminder on, I think we have all of these parties here today in some way. So there's, with the exception of the legislatures, which have already taken on much of their role in terms of authorizing the facility. So tolling is a complicated funding mechanism for transportation projects with different people owning different aspects of it. So the folks at the bottom, ODOT and WSDOT, we have WSDOT here today. Ed Berry will be presenting, who will give you an overview of what other WSDOT toll facilities are like and what it is like to be a customer on a WSDOT tolled facility. So in 2026, when tolling starts, all of you will be even more of an expert than the rest of the community, so that you can talk to folks about how to set up an account and what the different toll rates are and policies once those are set by the Transportation Commission. So we have staff here from both supporting staff that support the Oregon Transportation Commission and staff that support the Washington Transportation Commission, who are the decision makers on toll rates and policies. So we just wanted to lay out kind of those different roles and responsibilities and let you know that depending on what your question is, one of any of us may jump in to respond, knowing that it is hard for you guys to know who to ask the question to, which is why we tried to bring all of those folks to you at the same time, so that between the project and WSDOT and the Transportation Commissions, one of us can answer your questions and you can provide feedback directly to the Transportation Commissions as they continue to work on the 1 to 2 year timeline process to set toll rates and policies. So we will move into the next slide. which is Ed, who is the director of the Washtenaw Toll Division.
Megan, could I just real quick also add that we're very excited about having 4 speakers today relative to tolling. And we have asked that you be ready to do some interaction with us using the Mentimeter. And so Megan mentioned clarifying questions, but I do want to ask the CAG if we can try and move through the content, since we have these 4 speakers that have been able to show up. And we have about an hour left in our meeting. And if you do have questions, we want to hear them. If it's clarifying maybe a slide, then if you raise your hand, that would be helpful and I'll call on you. But if at all possible, let's try to make it through the first set of slides, ask any clarifying questions. Then the second set of slides is where we'll have some real interaction with the Mentimeter. So with that, if that helps, then I'll go back to Megan's comment and welcome Ed and Jennifer.
Well, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I look forward to working with you and getting to know you better in the coming months and years as we go through this process. You just have me this evening to go through some of this with you, and as Megan stated, I'm just going to give you a very high-level idea of who we are at Good to Go and what we do and what it's like to be a customer for the toll facilities that we have up in the Puget Sound area around Seattle. As I said, or maybe I should clarify, yeah, I'm the toll division director in the toll division, and we are within the Washington State DOT, we're a cabinet agency, and we plan, design, implement, and operate these toll facilities. So with that, these are our current toll facilities that are currently in operation up in the Puget Sound area. From left to right, it just gives you an idea of what they are, but it's also chronologically on when they became active and went live, if you will. Start with the first one on the far left, the SR-16 Tacoma Narrows Bridge. We began tolling that facility in 2007. Also at the bottom of these pictures, you'll see the different ways and reasons that we toll these facilities. We find that helpful for people to understand it. So for Tacoma Narrows, they're a flat toll rate, and they are to repay the construction bonds that helped build that bridge. Next came in May of 2008, the SR-167 hot lanes. That's a hot lane facility or express lane facility, if you will, that you pay if you choose for a faster trip. So it's right next to general purpose lanes that are free. Those opened in 2008, and they have dynamic toll rates that change with the level of congestion. Next up, the 520 bridge. That went live in December of 2011. This has variable toll rates on it, meaning the toll rates are higher during the peak hours to help manage traffic. So if folks have perhaps a discretionary trip, perhaps they'll take it at a different time of day. And it helps manage congestion during the peak hours. But also, and very importantly, these toll revenues repay construction bonds that help build that floating bridge between Bellevue and Seattle. Next up is the 405 express toll lanes. This is the first phase that of a multi-phase express toll lane system. That one went live in September of 2015. Similar to 167, this has dynamic toll rates again that manage traffic performance. It's an optional lane for folks to use when they wish to have a faster trip, and toll rates change based on the level of congestion. Again, an important distinction between the two. And then finally, the SR-99 tunnel underneath downtown Seattle. Tolling began on this facility in November of 2019. Similarly to the 520 bridge, it has variable toll rates that are the highest during the peak hours to manage traffic, and also we pay back some construction debt that helped build this tunnel. I should also mention that, I'm sorry, go back one. I should also mention that 520 and 99, those variable toll rates structures, is how it is envisioned for the project that we're talking about for the LB. Okay, next slide. So this gives you a better graphic idea of where all these facilities are located on a map for the Puget Sound area near Seattle and Tacoma. So there's the current toll facilities there in the top bullets. We have the Tacoma Narrow Bridge in the lower left, connecting Tacoma with Gig Harbor there. The SR 167 hot lanes, kind of the middle right, that dark green line next to the city of Kent there. The 520 floating bridge, the dark purple line, right in the middle across Lake Washington. The 405 express toll lanes in the dark green line between Bellevue and Linwood there. And then the 99 tunnel, the dark purple line, is kind of dead center of the map that goes underneath Seattle. So again, operating toll facilities today. Now the authorized toll facilities, now why we call it authorized is the legislature, as Megan stated, the legislature is the entity that in Washington picks and chooses which facilities we are going to toll. So we have legislation that has authorized these facilities that we are in the process of building and in the process of implementing the toll. So the first one is called the Puget Sound Gateway Program, and that's in two pieces in the south end of the Puget Sound. The purple dotted line there you see kind of going up a little bit below the 518 symbol. That is there you go, thank you. That is the extension of a highway called 509, and it's going to connect to I-5. This is full road tolling, so this is not an express lane facility, so the entirety of this road will be tolled to help pay for the construction of that program, but also to manage traffic. The other parts of the Gateway program are down in Tacoma there, and it's kind of in two pieces. You have the piece connecting I-5 to the Port of Tacoma. That's that dotted purple, and then the piece that's a little longer that connects I-5 out to SR 410 in the Keohokalole area. So both of those, again, are authorized and are in various processes of construction and tolling implementation. Next up is the 405 express lanes between Renton and Bellevue. That is the dotted green line. You can see this is the missing piece between the operating piece to the north and the 167 piece. So when this goes live, it's an extension of an express lane. We're going to have a 50-mile express lane system along the east side of the Puget Sound. And it's a very congested corridor, and it will allow folks that need a faster trip to choose that express toll lane when they need to get where they're going faster. But also the legislature has chosen to bond this revenue to help to continue to fund future projects in this corridor. And then finally, we have the project we're here to talk about. Sorry, it's not on the map. Most people know where it is. It's the IVR Bridge Replacement Program, recently added to the Good to Go family. So this decision was recently made, as you know, and so we in the toll division and the Good to Go family are putting together a plan to help implement tolling on this facility to help this program be successful, not only from a funding perspective, but an operational perspective and a customer perspective too. Next slide. All right, so that was the high level picture of our toll facilities in the Seattle area. We'll talk about a little bit about what it means or what it feels like to be a customer of Good to Go. We strive to provide good customer service and consistent payment options at all of our toll facilities. And what that means is the different options that we have are the good to go account and pass option. We also have a pay by plate option for those that choose not to have a pass. When I say a pass, that's a sticker, a transponder that you often see people stick on the windshield. And that is read by our RFID readers as you pass under all electronic tolling. I should say that everything in the Seattle area, except for the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, is all electronic tolling. So you pass under some of the equipment that I'm going to show you in a second. The only facility that has a toll booth is that first original facility at Tacoma Narrows Bridge. So I thought I should mention that. So if you have a good to go account and a pass, it'll read that pass as you go underneath the reader. For those that wish to just pay with a license plate, that's possible. We offer that. That's with an extra 25% fee. And for those that wish to have neither, we offer a pay-by-mail program where you pass under the equipment and we look up your license plate and then we will mail you a bill. So these are some of the programs that we have. There's also flexible account options within that we offer. There's a prepaid and pay-as-you-go, and what the vast majority of our customers that we have over 1 million customers. I think almost 1.2 million customers. The vast majority of them use those top two account options. And the prepaid option is you go onto our website or you call up our customer service center and you set up your account and you set up a prepaid amount with your debit or credit card, say $60 that you sort of chip away at with certain trips that we take, depending on how many you take. And then you can either watch that and auto or replenish it yourself, or there's an auto replenishment feature that says, okay, well, for example, if I go under $8, please replenish it with another $30 or $60 or some such. So that's a prepaid account, but there's also an option for pay as you go. If we have your information, your credit card or your debit, and you take a trip, and you'll just pay for that one trip and the next one and the next one as you go. There's some other more lesser used and certainly more obscure account options. There's an unregistered option where you still have to have your credit card, but you don't necessarily have to give us your name, but you do. I mean, you have your credit card. That's very rare. Invoiced, we have invoiced account options. That's usually for big government agencies or big employers. Rental car agency accounts and non-revenue accounts. Now, these are accounts for folks mainly with exemptions, like transit agencies, local law enforcement, other exempt sort of users of our system. Okay, next slide. Okay, customer service, very, very important part of all the technical things that I'm going to get into in a minute, but it's always good to focus on customer service because I like to think there's very few, if any, more public-facing divisions or disciplines within a DOT than toll. Because we provide a service and people expect a level of service. And we have to be careful and we have to be intentional on how we provide that. We problem solve, we educate, we test passes, we manage inventory, we do image review, we do civil penalty certification, we manage customer information. And mainly our vendor who provides this does a great job. We have a call center with customer service reps that are on calls Monday through Saturday. Taking calls, trying to help people with their accounts, working through problems, or just fulfilling tasks. So they identify issues, they channel to reach our public. If there's this customer call center and our customer service is really the voice of the customer, the checks and balances to our system when there's technical issues. It's a good avenue for us to work with our customers and notify our customers. It's definitely one of the most public-facing entities with our brand. and is really the link between our customers, our system, and our agency itself. So it's very, very important. It's something that we spend a lot of time on, and it's something that requires a lot of funding to do well and to do well. Okay. So how does all this work? How does electronic tolling work? So you can see some of the equipment there. You see the readers and the cameras on one of our facilities. As I mentioned, for those without an account, let me back up. When a vehicle travels on a toll road, it'll pass through that series of equipment that you see there, and it will search for that tag or transponder chip and take a photo of the license plate and determine the number of axles on a particular vehicle. While this data is collected, while it's nearly instantaneous, it can sometimes take multiple days for a trip to be built from the data assigned to a customer. So that's basically how it works out in the field, where that data is sent to our back office. Our back office creates a trip, a cost, and it does the accounting with our customer. But those without an account, as I mentioned, are vehicles that use a toll road. Perhaps they're somebody that doesn't live in the Seattle area, that doesn't use them very often, or is from out of state. So oftentimes that is, although there's users that just choose not to have pay-by-plate or a tag, that's true too. But the system photographs the license plate, collects the vehicle information, and that data is used to connect to the Department of Licensing or Department of Motor Vehicles, and a bill is mailed to that owner at that higher rate. We add on a $2 surcharge for that process because all of the extra process it takes to look up the account and mail and the postage and to mail the account. So there's a lot more process for that than there is for those with an account. When a vehicle uses a toll road, that sticker there is one of our sticker passes. That's a tag or transponder. The system collects that information off of that tag and goes directly to the customer's account. So they pay through account, and this is the most efficient and cheapest way to pay a toll and use a toll system. So as I said, there are many, many people out there, over 1 million customers that have accounts, and growing every day. As our toll systems, as those new systems come online and new travel sheds come online, our customer base grows and grows, and will grow ever more with IVR. Next slide. As I said, it's easier and quicker and cheaper to provide tolling and toll charges to customer with accounts because the system will take care of everything with sort of minimal human involvement. And so what you're seeing here at the bottom is how your account might look if you look at our CWP or our website. So you can log on to that website and you can take a look at your statement. You can manage your vehicles, you can manage your passes. You can take a look at the trips that you took last month or 2 months ago. It's really important that our customers can do that, and we really encourage them to do that to make sure that the charges that they're getting are accurate, particularly those that have multiple family members and multiple tags, and just to make sure that people understand the trips that they're taking and the trips that they're paying for. So that's what our website looks like. As I said, it takes 3 days for a trip to appear on your account, and approximately 2 weeks for the bill to arrive in the mail. So the upper right, that box there, that is what a typical toll bill might look like that you might receive from us. The upper right corner is your statement number. It has your plate, your customer ID, and the billing period of which it's a part, and then the amount that's due. When you do get a bill, you have up to a month to pay that bill, or it incurs late fees and penalties. After 60 days, a $5 late fee is charged. and up to 120 days, civil penalty was charged for toll. So that's an important part of how it works and how customers are charged and how they're on that. Next slide. So we've been at this over 15 years. We've made a lot of improvements. We've learned a lot about all electronic tolling. We've learned a lot how to be a responsible owner and a good customer service provider. What you're seeing there in that box is our newish. This has been live for going on 3 years now, but this is our new website that offers those features that I just described. And it is an important step on improving our customers' experience with our back office, but we are always trying to improve our customers' experience with each toll facility that we will add, and absolutely IBR is no different. It's very exciting. It's going to be a great effort for us to work with yourselves and the community to not only educate drivers and constituents on how it works, but also as to why tolling is being implemented and the benefit that it provides. Another thing that has evolved since the beginning of the toll program is the civil penalty process that I mentioned. In sort of the beginning days, there was a lot of people, or there was people, I should say, with that had very large toll bills because for one reason or another they didn't pay and they lost track of their bill, and tolling was new to the area. So working with our legislature, we developed a very effective process and forgiveness program where people call in and we can work with them to forgive one-time civil penalty charges and late fee charges and just collect the toll, which is what everybody's ultimate goal is. So that has been really helpful to our drivers and our community as we've been able to forgive those folks that have high toll bills and get their tolls paid and remove that stress from their life. So that was very important and has been a huge success for us. And I think that is it. So that's a really high level of how tolling works in the Seattle and Puget Sound area. And I'm happy to take questions now, or if you want to move on to the next presentation, happy to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. It looks like Tom has a question.
Thank you. I'd like to hear about your policies for equity pricing. Do you have systems to take into account people with financial struggles? Or, I mean, if the issue of charging more to pay by plate as opposed to paying on the computer is sort of an equity question there about people who may not have computer access and the additional costs that they incur as a punishment for being in a more difficult situation. So how do you deal with those questions?
That's a good question. That's a good question. We currently do not have a low income program or a low income discount within the Good to Go program. Although we've had a lot of conversation in the past few years around that with our legislature and with the commission, because we know there's interest and we know there's equity interest in it, not only in the Seattle area, but nationwide. So that conversation is evolving right now. And we know, and the commission knows, that it's an important conversation as a part of this facility. But for our facilities operating in the Seattle area, we do not have a low income program right now.
Jana, and then Martha, and then Zachary. I do want to mention it's 5:15 and we have a whole nother presentation, but let's go ahead, Jana, and then Martha and Zachary.
Thank you. It looks, as you're just describing your toll program, that you're using a lot of technology, which obviously makes this program more effective and hopefully less expensive. But I am curious to know what percentage of the toll that you collect goes to cover these administrative costs?
We do have a cost to collect, and I don't have it off the top of my head. That is very much in line with the rest of the toll agencies across the country. And as we continue to add facilities, our cost to collect becomes more efficient as we get more transactions. There's more revenue, but the costs that we have, and on some of these, not all, of course, but on some of the technology that we use to collect the tolls will remain somewhat static and manageable. So our cost to collect is competitive, but it does cost a certain amount of part of the toll revenue to collect the tolls. The equipment that I showed you out on the roadway, the customer service side of things, all of that is part of the cost to collect that.
Well, you say it's competitive. In things I read, I see that tolling can cost in excess of 30% of the cost of the toll goes to the administrative costs. And I'm wondering if that's close to what you're dealing with.
It depends on the facility, and it depends on the toll rate. If it's a low toll rate on a facility that doesn't have a lot of traffic, that percentage goes up. That is true.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the next presentation is going to take us a little bit of time. So Martha and Zachary, are your questions brief, and are they okay? Go ahead.
Will you be charging tolls for buses? And if so, will the bus riders have to pay that?
That's a great question. Toll exemptions are under the purview of the commission. So I think that would be, that's coming up in the next presentation, but that's a good question. The commission will evaluate all exemptions for this facility, but I can tell you up in the Seattle area, transit is exempt.
You spoke about those without accounts and those with accounts. What about those who don't have accounts and aren't registered, so you can't send them a bill? How do you deal with that? I mean, unregistered vehicles, I'm sorry.
For folks that don't have a license plate?
Correct. In Portland, that number is about 40% of the fleet, which is a pretty shocking number.
That is a high number. That would be an issue. If you don't have a license plate where we could look up your name and address, it would be difficult to send you a bill.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And sorry for moving the CAG along a little quickly. I want to make sure that we get into, we have the opportunity to present all the information with our speakers that are here. So with that, our next topic related is around the I-5 bridge toll scenario development and feedback. So I'm going to welcome Carl and Travis to our space and have them get started. And there is some interaction. So if you have not access the Menti, then please do so that we can engage around specific questions. Carl and Travis. Travis, you're going to start.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Appreciate the opportunity to come here today and talk to you. I'm Travis Brower, Assistant Director for the Oregon Department of Transportation, and I'm going to take the first part of this conversation. But Carl, do you want to introduce yourself before we get going?
Sure. Thank you for having us today. My name is Carl C. I'm the Deputy Director for the Washington State Transportation Commission.
All right, so we're going to spend a little bit of time with you today, and we appreciate that opportunity to come talk to you and even get a little bit of feedback as we're starting this process. You're actually the first element of really public conversation that we're having around the toll rate setting process. So you get to go first. You will be our test run, and we will learn all the ways that we do well and that we don't do well, and do it better in the future. So today we're going to spend some time with the objectives really of trying to help you understand what the Bi-State Toll Subcommittee work is going to be, their schedule, and how they're going to go about that and get through the policy considerations that are in front of them. We're going to ask you to use Mentimeter we're going to pose some questions for you. You can provide us some feedback on the various elements of the toll scenarios. And we hope by the end you'll understand how some of the feedback that's provided by the public and groups like the CAG will be able to help inform the bi-state toll subcommittee process. So next slide, please. The I-5 bi-state toll subcommittee was stood up just earlier this year. And you can go to the next slide too, please. The toll subcommittee is made up of 2 Oregon transportation commissioners and 2 Washington state transportation commissioners, as it is the role of those 2 transportation commissions under Oregon and Washington state law to approve toll rates and policies. So the 2 commissions have empowered a subcommittee made up of these 4 members who will recommend toll rates and policies to their respective full commissions for the rate setting initially, and then periodic review in the future. The 4 members of the commission are Roy Jennings, who is from the Portland-Vancouver metro region, and then Vice Chair Jim Restucci, who is from Sunnyside. On the Oregon side, we have Alicia Chapman, who is from the Portland-Vancouver metro region, and then our Vice Chair of the Transportation Commission, Lee Byer, who is a former legislator from the Eugene-Springfield area. So we have representatives both from within the region and from the larger state community, given that the Interstate Bridge is such a critical bi-state regional facility. The subcommittee has been working through this issue of tolling the Interstate Bridge, and their work is going to inform the full commission's rate setting decisions. They are going to be directing the research and analysis that we're going to be kicking off, particularly with this level 3 traffic and revenue analysis that I'm going to walk you through. And of course, the work of the bi-state toll subcommittee has to comply with the various state laws which set the tolling policy of the 2 states. And they will also have a fiduciary financial responsibility as they set the toll rates to meet the funding needs for the project, and particularly the bond covenants that are going to be set when we issue debt on the project. So next slide, please. Tolling on the I-5 bridge is at the very least, it's a financial issue because tolling is designed to contribute about $1.24 billion. And yes, that is very specific, but that is the number that is in the finance plan for the project based on the current range of cost estimates and the current funding sources. And that will contribute to bridge construction. But it will also pay not just for that initial capital construction cost, but for the ongoing maintenance and operation of the facility. And of course, we're hopeful that tolling will help manage traffic on the corridor and help improve travel reliability within the bridge corridor. Of course, we recognize that there are other benefits and implications of tolling, whether that's the potential for diversion, whether that's also providing an incentive for efficient use of the system, and incentives to use public transportation. But those are other considerations that will be taken up by the committee as well. Pre-completion tolling on the existing bridge is anticipated to begin in 2026, somewhere in the middle of the year after we are under construction. And then tolling is going to continue on the new bridge once it's open to traffic several years into the future after tolling begins. It's important to note that the toll rates and policies may differ between pre-completion tolling on the existing bridges and tolling on the new bridges. That will help us address revenue and operational performance, and there's some policy considerations about what we charge and how we charge before we open the new bridge versus after the new bridge when we have more capacity and light rail capacity as well. So all of this is going to be taken up and considered by this subcommittee that has been impaneled by the 2 commissions. Next slide, please. This gives you a broad sense of the schedule which this tolling subcommittee is operating. They are in the process of developing the level 3 traffic and revenue scenario options. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute, get into what that means, what that looks like. We anticipate that by September, the 2 commissions are going to come together, likely in a joint meeting in the Vancouver-Portland metro region, and actually approve those scenarios so that they can be analyzed in depth. That will take place over the course of 6 to 8 months, and then there will be a public process that will allow for public input on the various toll scenarios after we've done that initial analysis. We do anticipate that next year, around this time, we will be getting into the point of really getting into the process of the commission taking that public comment into account, and then beginning the process of adopting toll rates and policies. And I should note that when we talk about toll policies and rates, we're talking about the whole gamut of issues that will need to be decided, both the rates by time of day and day of the week, as well as those questions about exemptions and discounts and all of the other issues around who pays how much, truck multipliers, et cetera, that we're going to talk about in a little while. The actual adoption of toll rates should be complete during the summer of 2025 by probably next September or thereabouts. And then as noted earlier, tolls will actually start in the spring of 2026. So that's off the chart here, so to speak. But really, it is a process that will take place over the next 2 years. So next slide, please. Now we're going to move into level 3 scenario development. And you're probably wondering, what the heck is a level 3 scenario? That is a very nerdy way of talking about the work that we're going to be doing. So next slide, please. There are 3 levels of toll traffic and revenue studies. The first is a level 1, which is sort of a sketch or planning level. It really is designed to examine the feasibility of tolling and test high-level alternatives. It's usually a pretty short process, and this work on the interstate bridge was actually completed years ago during the CRC process. Last year, we moved into the level 2, a more comprehensive traffic and revenue analysis. This does more detailed evaluation of various alternatives and scenarios that help support really some of the initial discussions around toll rate setting and policy development. So we got the initial level 2 traffic and revenue analysis last fall, and that's helped us understand what rates may need to be and what some of the policy levers are that can be pulled to either raise additional revenue or address some of the concerns about tolls. We also added a few additional scenarios this spring so that we have been wrapping that work up. This takes a little bit longer, and it is part of the NEPA analysis as well, taking place alongside it. What we're moving into now is that level 3 analysis, which is sometimes called an investment grade analysis. This is the really deep evaluation of really a small number of toll scenarios. We're really trying to narrow in on maybe 3 or 4 scenarios that will have a consultant develop a traffic and revenue model and do really in-depth. This is really to get to the point of being able to obtain a credit rating and secure financing. These take up to a year, and they need to be refreshed periodically. So typically these are done right before rate setting and before bond sales. So for us, we're doing this right before the rate setting process. We're not expected to sell debt until later in the process, after the opening of tolling in 2026. So we'll probably do a refresh on this level 3 scenario. Or sorry, it was level 3 study. Next slide, please. So within this, it really does provide that detailed traffic and revenue projections that will help inform the rate setting by the 2 commissions. We're trying to model financing to leverage at least $1.24 billion in capital funding and be able to meet that capital funding need and the financial obligations, not just over the initial years, but over the entire forecast horizon. And of course, this is designed to eventually obtain that investment grade credit rating so that we can go sell bonds. Literally, we have to take this to the bank in a sense. So we're working right now with the Bi-State Toll Subcommittee to narrow this consideration to about 3 or 4 scenarios to really facilitate in-depth analysis, really looking at the different combinations of rate and policy options that will move forward as scenario concepts. We're also going to be doing some stress tests or risk analyses as a side element to this outside of some of those key narrow scenarios that will address some of our financial planning questions. So next slide, please. So the question really is, what does a toll scenario include? It is really made up of a number of components and different options for analysis. And so here are some of the key ones. Obviously, toll rates by time of day and day of the week, and the effective date. So for us, we're looking at what are the toll rates for every hour of the day? How should they differ across the day to best manage traffic? What should they be on the weekend? And what will they be both before and after completion of the project? There is also consideration of what trucks versus passenger vehicles should pay. So we call that the truck toll multiplier. Typically, trucks pay 2 to 4 or even more times what a passenger vehicle pays. For medium duty trucks and heavy trucks, there's oftentimes different rates based on size or the number of axles. And so we're going to be analyzing that too. And I know Ms. Jarvis has been deeply engaged in issues related to tolling, had many conversations about what fair toll rates will be for the trucking industry, given the volume of trucks over this bridge. There's also a question of what an annual escalation percentage should be to account for inflation, as well as any discounts, exemptions, whether that's for buses, as we were discussing earlier, or a toll rate discount for travelers that qualify based on income. That was something that Oregon had discussed as we were developing our toll program, looking at a 50% discount for households with incomes that were less than 200% of the federal poverty level. And so that's going to be a conversation that we move into this conversation to determine whether that should be something that's applied on the interstate bridge. So with that, I will turn it over to Carl for his portion of the presentation.
Thank you, Travis, and great job walking through that. If there are questions that come up in terms of terminology we're throwing out, I'm happy to pause if we see a hand up. I know we're trying to move through it, but I do want to make sure we're using words and just terminology that is something that can be understood well. As Travis said, we're working to, it's the first time kind of walking through this with our community groups, with the IBR community groups, and this is a great time for us to kind of hone our message as well. So appreciate any feedback you have along the way. Travis really did a great job covering, I thought, the elements of what we are working with here to achieve and the steps that are involved. What I want to do here next is walk you through some of the more specific toll rate and policy considerations that the subcommittee is undertaking. I'll start with some considerations that the subcommittee has identified in addition to the funding requirements and in existing laws in each state. The funding requirements, for example, are in statute for both Oregon and Washington, in that we must cover those elements that Travis touched on in terms of debt service and operations and maintenance costs for the bridge and for tolling that tie back to this facility. There's also the direction on addressing the traffic management on the bridges, for example. So those are elements that are in existing law. But each state has also independently developed guidelines around tolling that have been identified. And as a bi-state body, the subcommittee wanted to ensure that there was some clear considerations that they're owning effectively that reflect what's in those guidelines for each of our states, but bringing them together in one document or one set of considerations. So those are safe and efficient mobility, improving corridor mobility and efficient operations, equity, minimizing the effects of vulnerable populations and overburdened communities, environmental quality, contributing to the reduction of air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions, and economic vitality, supporting the efficient movement of goods and services across the bridge. And these are the descriptions included in our description of these considerations for the bi-state subcommittee. They're not necessarily the full scope of what these must mean, but also just wanted to be sure that they were putting words to what they were speaking to in terms of these terms. The subcommittee recognizes that there are trade-offs amongst these four considerations as they try to set these toll rates and policies. And they understand that this is also that toll rates and policies are only one tool in trying to achieve some really broad considerations that we're seeking to address as transportation professionals across the spectrum of transportation policy in our states. So that said, I think what we wanted to put forward for you as our first question was what toll rate and policy considerations of these 4 that are listed are most important to you. And I'm going to hand it off to, I'm not sure who's controlling the Mentimeter piece, or maybe there's an explanation that could be provided here, but want to make sure that there's an opportunity here to see your feedback. And if there is some discussion, maybe pause for that.
So this is the opportunity for the CAG to not only use your Mentimeter, but also provide us any input in terms of what we're seeing. And if there's any questions, I know you've heard a lot today and we've been moving along pretty quick. We have 4 of these Mentimeter polls. So has everybody had a chance to be able to access the Mentimeter? Does anyone have any trouble? Irina, I see your face.
My screen is so small, I can't see anything. So is there someplace I need to go to click on something?
Yes, it's in your email, Dina. So there's a link to click on, get you into Mentimeter. We wanted to make sure that the CAG had access, but we didn't want to have the public weigh in on the polling, just the CAG at this point. So that's why we tried to send it out via email. So anyone else having any challenges, or are you able to access the Irina?
I don't see the email because I'm checking it and I don't see it.
Okay, it's from the CAG admin at 3:30 today. There was a link with an access code and a QR code.
I have it. Are we supposed to just grab it and click it, the option? Drop?
Yes.
I see it. Okay.
You got it? There's QR code. You can click that too.
Okay.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. Anyone else need any support on the tech side? Okay, so what we're seeing is we've asked you what toll rate and policy considerations are most important to you. So we're looking for you to share with us responses to safe and efficient mobility, improving corridor mobility and efficient operations, economic vitality, supporting the efficient movement of goods and services across the bridge, equity, minimizing effects on vulnerable populations and overburdened communities, and environmental quality, contributing to the reduction of air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. These 4 you might see align pretty directly with the CAG's values and priorities, community values and priorities. We're seeing some of the numbers change as you're engaging in the Mentimeter. So has everyone had an opportunity to provide a response?
Mine, after I tried to submit it, it said the presenter hasn't changed slides yet.
Oh, because you already finished 1, so you're getting ready to go to 2. So
no, okay. Well, I was,
did you
I was
input
just submitting
already?
the first one, so
yeah, just the first one. This is the first one, and then Carl will talk to us about the next slide, and we'll engage there. So it looks like safe and efficient mobility is first. Does that seem like that resonates with the community advisory group?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other comments or questions or feedback? All right, I'm gonna keep moving us then. All right, so let's go ahead, Carl.
Okay. And I'll say this information that we're taking in today, we'll be sharing this back to the subcommittee at our next subcommittee meeting on June 21st. Which is a public meeting, so any of you are always welcome to attend our subcommittee meetings. And so just to give you some context, that we'll be sharing that with them as they're advancing with their consideration of recommendations around these level 3 scenarios that Travis spoke to. So appreciate it. Our next slide here, Travis did a great job actually of touching on each of these, but I can expand on this some more. Some objectives and key scenario components of the toll rate scenarios that the subcommittee is working to advance for recommendation and consideration by the full commissions. Across the top, you'll see two objectives, operating performance objectives and toll funding objectives. Effectively, this is saying that any scenarios we put forward need to meet these the funding requirements that are in law, for example, for the toll funding objectives, as well as the operating direction in terms of, say, traffic management that are also described in law for this facility. Within that are the 5 components of the toll scenarios that the subcommittee have come around for consideration. And as I mentioned, Travis largely talked through these a little bit earlier. But one is the toll rate variability by time of day and day of week. So that's really saying that there could be variable toll rates, higher toll rates during the peak periods of the day, while those might be lower rates overnight and during the middle of the day, to reflect when we must have the most congestion, and therefore provide for a tool for us to support some traffic management. Similarly, there may be tolling on the weekends as well as during the weekday, and how we consider tolling on the weekends may also include some level of variability. User discounts and or exemptions, as noted, this can include consideration, and it is including consideration of a low income discount, as well as exemptions for transit and for emergency vehicles as well, which is what we are currently, both transit and emergency vehicles, for example, are currently exempted in Washington State. Next, toll escalation. This would be with the intent to address ongoing inflationary concerns. For example, the rate that has been identified or assessed so far is 2.15% on an annual basis. That is meant to address the ongoing escalation around or inflationary costs for operations and maintenance for the facility. Next, those truck toll multipliers, as Travis identified, this would be looking at a higher toll rate for both medium and heavy duty trucks, ranging from what's currently been assessed is from a low of 1.5 and 2 times higher for medium and heavy duty trucks, respectively, up to two times to 4 times for medium and heavy duty trucks. We're also looking at potentially some middle ground that's more in alignment, similar to what we are currently charging here in Washington State, which would be at that about 1.5 for medium duty and 3 times for heavy duty trucks. And finally, pre-completion tolling, as noted, there may be differences that the commission advances for different toll rates, and as well as different hours of operations, or whether weekends are tolled, for example, as well as for different policy choices that may be made for pre-completion tolling. So on the current bridges as compared to tolling on the new bridge. On that point, I'll address that some of the reasons, and this is going to lead into a question for around pre-completion tolling, some thoughts on pre-completion tolling. As I think Travis largely addressed this, but just to give you a little more context, during construction of the new bridge, the mainline I-5 across the current toll facility, across the current bridges, is expected to remain open during daytime hours. In addition, pre-completion tolling is expected to provide early revenues for capital construction funding, as well as reduce the amount of toll revenues potentially needed for future interest costs. If we can have more funding up front, it could reduce the amount of money we need to go out for bonding for, or provide for better interest rates. This overall pre-completion tolling will generate toll revenue to support pay-as-you-go construction expenditures, as well as provide an opportunity for on the operational side and on the rate setting side to fine-tune toll collection operations, traffic and revenue forecast, and toll rates and policies before issuing those bonds for construction in 2029, anticipated to be in 2029. In addition, this pre-completion tolling will help manage demand through the corridor, recognizing that the existing toll facility, the existing bridges already have traffic management challenges. And so this would be an opportunity to have a tool to manage that traffic demand. Finally, preliminary IBR tolling analysis, that's really that level 2 analysis, has considered the lower toll rates during pre-completion period, as well as exclusion of overnight tolls. And as we move into level 3, we're continuing to consider options for having some of those options assessed amongst the 3 or 4 scenarios that the subcommittee puts forward for recommendation to the full commission, each full commission. So with that in mind, our question that we have for you is, how should we, I'll wait for this to move to the next slide. Oop, I think, oh, sorry. Which trade-off approach would you prefer? One, I prefer the pre-completion toll rates that are similar to toll rates after the new bridge opens. So just start with whatever toll rates and policies we anticipate having for the new bridge, start from day 1 in 2026. Or I prefer pre-completion toll rates be kept low, even if that means higher toll rates would be needed when the new bridge is opened.
Okay. This is interesting. So we're seeing 3.4 for prefer pre-completion toll rates that are similar to toll rates after the new bridge. Okay, now we're still moving, input's still happening. Okay, great. Everybody had an opportunity to provide input. Okay, it looks like
I like this game, so we should do this more often.
We did realize this was the first time we've used this tool with CAG, and so I do think it's pretty effective. It allows for us to all provide input. So I want to just also do a bit of a time check. So it's 5:46 on my computer, and we do have someone that would like to provide public comment. So I think what I would like to do is to go ahead and allow for public comment, which we advertise is around 5:45 during our meeting. And then I know that we really want to honor our community's time. And I think there are 2 other really good questions. Carl has some more information. So I'm hoping that after we do public comment, that we'll be able to re-engage in this and continue with the Mentimeter. I also recognize if folks need to leave because it's close to 6, then I want to recognize that you have other commitments too. So let's go ahead at this time and bring up the slides relative to the directions for accessing the community advisory group to provide public comment. Just to reiterate again, to make a verbal comment, we ask that you dial 1-646-931-3860. Our meeting ID is 986-0940-5983. Our passcode is 701376. I'll ask you to dial *9 to raise your hand. I will call on those that are interested in providing public comment, and *6 to unmute yourself. We ask that you provide your name and affiliation so that we can ensure that the community advisory group knows who is addressing the CAG. So with that, our IBR tech support, Robert, it looks like we may have someone that is entering the room that's interested in providing public comment.
Hi, Lisa. Yes, we have Adam here joining us, and I will admit him in.
Okay, great. Hi, Adam. I'm Lisa, and one of the co-facilitators. I understand that you'd like to address the community advisory group. Can you hear me? And are you ready to provide feedback? Hi, Adam. It looks like you might be muted. If you'd like to provide feedback. Are you ready, Adam?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, how are you? Sorry, I'm here.
Okay, thanks, Adam. So you have
I'm
2
here. How are
minutes.
you?
Good. If you could share your name and any organization you might be providing input on behalf of, that'd be helpful. And we'll go ahead and start the timer.
All right, my name's Adam, and I'm from London.
Adam, are you wanting to address the community advisory group for the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program?
So I'm in London. Yeah, so I'm from London too. So that's why I was born in London. So yeah, I'm here to hear what you're talking about. So that's why.
Okay, all right. Just want to confirm that there's not public comment that you wanted to make. Adam, can you hear me? Okay, Adam, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to mute you right now. And if you do want to make public comment, there are ways to do that, including calling in for our next meeting. Okay, all right. So, Robert, is there anyone else that has signed up to provide comment to the CAG?
No, I think that's all we have for today at the moment too.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, Carl. I know this is a little start and stop. Really appreciate your flexibility. We just want to make sure that we are continuing to give space for our community to provide feedback. All right, so did everybody have a chance to provide input on the second question? We're ready to move to the third and fourth. All right, Carl.
Okay, and I appreciate that feedback on the trade-offs, and we'll also be considering the policy piece of that too, right? But seeing where the thoughts on the tolling side, the toll rate side is good information for us as well. So one of the considerations that at a high level that there is part of the analysis as well as the ongoing questions from commissioners is around that question of diversion that Travis mentioned. But we also like to think about, recognize that diversion can take many different forms. It's not simply deciding between the I-5 bridge and the I-205 bridge, for example. So in a sense, we recognize that travelers may make many different choices when tolling gets put in place. For example, it could be an alternative route. It could be that toll drivers choose to take I-205 instead of I-5, or there may be a different mode choice that is made. For example, taking transit or the new light rail that's going to be going across the bridge. In addition, there could be a choice about the destination. So instead of going to the target across the river, they go to the target on their own side of the river and never actually take that trip that would otherwise have resulted in a toll. In addition, they may change the time of day in which they make a trip, in which case that they may pay a lower toll. Instead of going during the peak hours, they go during the time of day when we have a lower toll, whether that's midday or overnight. And finally, they may make how frequently they make that trip may change. So instead of going into work across the river, say 5 times a week, perhaps they can telework and only go in 2 or 3 times during the week, saving themselves the need to pay that toll in the process. With those options in mind, we have a couple questions that we have put together for you. And the first here is, how do you feel about this following statement? Paying a toll will cause me to rethink which mode of travel I use across the bridge.
I do like this Mentimeter. I think this is really helpful.
Yes.
Okay.
The
Yeah, let's
second
go ahead and
question.
move to the next question.
The second related question is, let's see if I'll wait for it. Which of these do you think are the most likely changes in travel behavior once a toll is implemented? It's not just necessarily thinking for your own experience, but how often, which of these do you think are the most likely changes that we'll see as a whole collectively for traveling once that toll is put in place, ranging from the no changes, taking 205, skipping the trip, taking transit, walking or biking, traveling on a different time of day, or carpool.
Okay. Take I-205, travel during a different time of the day. I was curious if, given the pandemic, if travel behavior had changed and if that influenced your response to this, that more folks are able to work from home, perhaps, and that might be part of the alternative. Looks like they're tied. Take I-205 and travel during a different time of the day.
Great.
Okay.
I think this question will be both informative for our commissioners as they think about kind of the effects of how to go about setting those toll rates, but also as we seek to communicate about what different options are, or perhaps what we think will be, what will result if for different groups of people or different individuals as we go forward with this decision making, that we could focus on communication and education about what those alternatives might be and what those effects, or what kind of different opportunities or challenges might be out there for those types of choices.
So I know we're running, really close to the end of our anticipated time. I am curious if there is any feedback on that last polling question in terms of the folks that you're interacting with. How do you think they would respond? How would the community, if this was a really big, broad community session, many of you are representing organizations and groups that you meet with regularly, how do you think they would respond to these? Jana.
Sorry, couldn't get off mute. I would say that from the trucking perspective, that we don't have a choice on time of day. And that's been one of our concerns about how this policy gets implemented for medium duty and heavy duty vehicles. Thank you.
Thanks, Jana. Tom?
I think some of these are important questions to ask the larger community. So we limited this particular poll to the CAG, but I think it would be important to take this out to the community as a whole and look for a comparison. That's all.
It's great. Thank you, Tom. Anyone else from the CAG have any other comments or feedback? Dina?
So just, if you're looking at, trying to get across to Oregon or vice versa to Washington, if, one has a toll and the other one doesn't, that diversion factor could be kind of high. And if this is what, the response you're getting from this community that represents multiple different communities, I would hazard a guess that it's probably pretty similar to what you would get if you were to ask the greater public, that they would either take 205 or travel at a different time of day if they have that capability. For folks in business who are, having to move goods across, the time of day might not be a factor, but choosing a different route might be. And then what does that do for congestion on 205 and the ability to move efficiently across again? So something to consider.
Thanks, Dina. Sam? I can't hear you.
Oops. Okay,
Thank you.
I unmuted. Okay, so As a user of Good to Go, I have that transponder. I actually taken a lot of the toll roads that was earlier discussed. And if the rate, even the highest rate, is about what it is, then probably won't change too many people's behavior. But if it's anything like East Coast, where they charge you $20 per trip, that will drastically change the behavior. So I think it really depends on how much the tolling is, because maybe I missed it, but I didn't see what kind of an order of magnitude of tolling dollar value we were talking about. Is it going to be comparable to what Washington State currently charges, or is it going to be like 10 times more?
I could.
I was like, Carl, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to ask Bill if he wants to provide his feedback? Go ahead, Carl.
I was going to say not 10 times more for sure. We're still considering rates, and you know, it could be in the range of $3 to $4 for that top rate, just to say, and that's not a specific number on purpose because we're looking at some different options. But say peak hour rates each direction, that 3 or 4, between 3 and 4, this might be a starting number in 2026. But again, looking at what that might look like still, in fact, we're specifically forbidden in state law to have a toll rate that is higher than any existing toll rates on our in Washington State facilities. So there is some limitations on where we can go with the highest of the high toll rates that might come around. But yeah, that 3 to 4 maximum. I mean, something in that 150 to 250 range on the low end. Again, looking at different options, but that's some consideration for
having driven 4 or 5 in the the Alaska Viaduct replacement tunnel, the Highway 99. I don't think that has really changed people's behaviors too much because it's still congested on the toll roads.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like Bill and then John, and then we do have one more question for you. So go ahead, Bill.
I think my comment was that in Portland's relation, or in I-5's relation to I-205, it's not that far to skip and go a couple miles to the east, to get to 205 to take it. So I think a lot of people would go around and take the alternative route and come back in from the backside.
John?
Thank you. I could see for Vancouver Clinic employees specifically that they may want to adjust their schedules or have a different start time or end time depending on what those toll rates might be. So I think that could be a consideration. And unrelated to that, but I was curious with the inflationary rate being a static one, why not attach it to like a CPI index or something similar to that has some variability for the future?
Good comments. Great. Okay. Appreciate folks staying just a little bit longer.
I could cover these.
Go ahead, Carl.
Sure. And I'll just note the highest rate we've looked at so far is 355 for kind of starting out. So that's our current range up to that. Looking at outreach, we had one question we wanted to follow here, but just first let you know kind of the overall outreach plan right now for the Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee. One, the overall intent is both to inform recommended toll rates and policies through public engagement as well as through travel consultation. For public engagement, this looks like with the intent of supporting awareness and input about toll rate scenario recommendations, some of which we're doing with you today, as well as our monthly subcommittee meetings that we convene, which are open to the public, both for public to watch as well as to provide public comment on at the end. Overall, we're seeking to reach both the general public as well as historically disadvantaged and marginalized communities. In terms of travel consultation, we have a plan together and have done some initial outreach to consult with federally recognized tribes in both Oregon and Washington on development of the toll rates and policies. And we look forward to advancing with that process in the coming months. So our question on the outreach is a simple one at one level, but one we are really seeking to get as much information about or feedback about as possible. And that's what groups should we reach out to about tolling tied to your experiences and your networks in the community.
Okay, you can keep adding on the Mentimeter. I think the comments about, you know, being able to ask the community these questions is great feedback. And then who specifically we should be reaching out to. So
appreciate that. This slide really, something that Travis touched on before, the bi-state tolling subcommittee will continue to be in place after the toll rate setting takes place. We just want to emphasize that this will be a body that will remain there both for public consideration around understanding how toll rates and policies are really how well they're doing their job effectively. We'll be there to review the traffic and revenue analysis, to be there to maintain a forum for public engagement, and to ultimately recommend potential changes to toll rates and policies for consideration by the full commissions when and if changes are necessary. And this will continue both as after opening of or starting of tolling on the existing bridges in about early 2026, as well as following the opening of the new bridge in the early 2030s. So next steps that we have we have two bi-state tolling subcommittees coming up. First on June 21st from 1 to 3 p.m. and then on July 19th. The July 19th meeting is when we are scheduled to really make the recommendations to the full commissions, but we are considering the preliminary recommendations at the June 21st meeting. And so welcome to have you attend either of those if you want to learn more. I'll know we're also meeting with the Equity Advisory Group meeting, Travis and I, coming up on Monday. So we'll do a very similar presentation with that advisory group as well. And then we list information here for additional resources for where you can see agendas and materials, as well as how you can provide receive information about upcoming meetings. So with that, thank you for your time, a little extra time today. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and both share, but also hear your input, and look forward to continuing this discussion, particularly if you want to reach out, happy to do that, or perhaps have an opportunity to come back and provide you some updates.
thank you, Carl and Ed and Travis. And I know that I moved you along a little bit fast towards the end. If there are follow-up questions, we really do encourage you, send an email, let us know. We tried the Mentimeter. I think that was once we got into it, seemed like that was a success. So we really do want to hear feedback from you, because we want to make sure that these meetings provide the opportunity for two-way dialogue, and that you feel like the material is really what you're looking for, which it feels like it is. So with that, I'm just going to ask Administrator Johnson if you have anything that you might want to add to close this out.
Just want to thank everybody for their participation and staying a little longer, but great input and feedback for these folks to take back and put in the whole mix of things that they're looking at. So thank you. This is what the Community Advisory Group is meant to do.
All right. Well, thank you for the extra time, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you on a bridge tour in July, and then we'll stay in touch as to what August looks like. So have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Great meeting.
Bye.
Thank you.